All right, so one more video in this sequence. I want to talk a little bit about slightly more advanced CSS. Nothing fancy though. We're not going to do a lot here, but I will tell you about a few things to look at. So one is that CSS also provides you with built-in facilities for more elaborate layouts. And the other thing is there are people out there who have made libraries of things for you to help with your design. So first, let's talk about the built-in stuff. So one is this thing called Flexbox. And I'm not going to show you anything with Flexbox, but I will give you links to this tutorial and to some references. And, it's Flexbox lets you put things in so that they appear nicely horizontally and wrap well. And, you can literally just go through this tutorial and you can see here that you can, you put a style which says display flex, flex grow, it literally is, you can follow through this, mess with this, test it, etc. It explains what each of the pieces are, and you can learn about Flexbox. The other one is the CSS grid. And you can do the same thing here. And I'm going to show you an example of grid in a second. But you can read this. You can create a grid, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I'm not going to, let me just get to the right tabs. I'm not going to go through the tutorial here, but I'll give you a link to it. I'll also give you a link to a couple other sites, like this one I like, and it has all these little grid layouts. What you can do, a couple things. I mentioned this the other video. You can inspect the element, right click and then inspect element, and then you can literally see what all of these things are. Oh, this is and notice here, make this bigger. You can also look at the styles, and so you can kind of learn how the pages are made. But the other thing you can do is if you right click on this, you can view the page source, and this will give you the HTML CSS for it. And again, you can figure things out that way as well. But let me show you a quick example of grid. So this is on the local machine. I haven't pushed it to GitHub yet. But we can make, what we can say is, let's say we want these two divs to be in a grid. So we're going to say, let's make a new div, and we'll say its class is going to be side by side. So the things in here will be side by side, and close that div. So that's why divs are really useful. They make these hierarchies. And now we're going to make some more styles. Now I could just I could do it up top where I have the other styles, but I can also do it down here. I mean, just to show you, I could basically make another style section. And if I say side by side, notice the dot, color equals red. Just to show you, you can have multiple style sections. But instead, I'm going to put it up here. And so we're going to make side by side. And this is going to say we're going to display this as a grid. Now, if I just do that, nothing interesting happens. But I can then say, I'm going to give it a template. And I'm going to say, I could say like 10 EM, 30 EM, I think. And it gives us how big they're going to be. But what's more useful, I think, is this. And FR stands for like fractional unit. And so if they're both 1 FR, if I save this, they each get 50% of the space. But on the other hand, if I make this one a little bit bigger, it won't be, it'll be, that gets a little bit bigger. Or this is going to be twice the space. So you can control the spaces. And now if I give another div, let's give another div in here, just, random div. And let's insert list, just so it looks visually different. And since the grid is set up, with 2 columns, notice it goes, the next one comes below. But on the other hand, if I make my grid, if I add to my grid, let's put in a third column in here. And FR. And now we have our third column. Yeah, so this lets you really start formatting things in a much more interesting way. And notice that when you get an error like that, when you have a little typo, it kind of kills you. So the other thing we can also say is let's put in a gap between our items. Make it 10 EMs. This is going to be way too big. And again, I have a typo, which is why it didn't work. But maybe 2 EM might be a little bit nicer. You know, and so you can combine these and you can use these together to make really nice layouts just in old school CSS. And I really haven't shown you that much. You know, and they're all, you can look up how to change the fonts and all of that stuff, and you can do some really cool things. So that's the grid, and you can use that, or you can look into Flexbox. There are also libraries that people have written to make your lives easier, like Bootstrap. This was popular. I don't know if it's popular now, but it was popular for a long time. And basically what it would do, it would give you a lot of classes. And it would give you things like these special components, like it would make you know, nav bars, and you could make you know, drop downs look interesting and cool, a lot of fancy stuff. But it kind of tied your it made your website look in a very particular way. But a lot of people like it, and you can certainly use things like that. Zerb Foundation is another one. And one that I've been using most recently is something called Tailwind. And these are a little bit more advanced, so I'm not saying you should use them now, and you shouldn't really if you're just starting with this. You should first learn the basic HTML, and then you should learn the basic CSS. But basically, like Tailwind gives you, I wonder if it was a little quick demo site. Yeah, I haven't moved in a little while, but I guess that. But anyway, these are libraries to make things much nicer and more interesting. But for the assignment I'm going to give you, what I would say is if you're new to HTML, just use HTML and basic CSS. You know, the more experienced you are, just try to stretch yourself a little bit, and that's it. But I wanted to give you the feeling for this and how you can see that, you know, specifically with this grid, and Flexbox is similar, you know, in that it's pretty lightweight, is, you know, you can really quickly and easily, you know, do these types of things. You know, like even just like a little change, like with the border, if I just make this for all divs, you know, now it looks like a little, you know, it looks a little bit, you know, and then you can add CSS to make a little drop shadow to give that effect to it, etc. So let me just push this up to GitHub. Okay, and, you know, in a minute or two, this will appear, so, you know, I'm not going to wait for that. But that's basically it. So these are the videos, and yeah, good luck at parent conferences, and I'll see all of you in another week.